श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये। लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः. So we continue with the Mumuksupadi Anusandhanam. Bhagavad Chesha Sutra number 63. Bhagavad Cheshattilam Cheshatvattilam Anyeshtam Kriye Pradhanam Marandum Puranduram Gayane Ippadi Krurama Anyeshtam Kaihai Atma Vikku Pradhanapekhitamindri Ilchonna Arthatai Stiri Karikirar Bhagavad Cheshatvattilam Anyeshtam Kaihaye Pradhanam Yenne அதாவது லக்ஷ்மி சேஷத்துவத்திலும் காட்டிலும் பிரதானம் என்னவனவே என்று பகவான் தனக்கு சேஷமாயிருக்கும் அதிலும் காட்டில் அந்நிய விஷயத்தில் சேஷத்துவம் கையே ஆத்மாவுக்கு பிரதானாபேட்சிதம் என்கை. So as we have seen in the last few sutras, the main aspect that is being mentioned here is that this Jivatma or individual soul is subservient to the Paramatma alone and not to anyone else. As I mentioned earlier, whenever an assertive sentence is mentioned, that assertive sentence results in two negatives when explained. As I gave an example earlier, he is sure to come. Let us consider this example. So when you say he is sure to come, what does it mean? It means that there is no chance that he will not come. So there is no chance that he will not come. There are two negatives. So when you say the individual soul is subservient to the supreme soul alone, then what does it mean? It results in two negatives. That means he is not subservient to anyone else. This is one meaning. Second meaning is that he is also subservient to the supreme goddess Sri Mahalakshmi. So these are the two meanings that emerge from the Ukara, which is between Akara and Makara. But which among these two is more important is the question. While it is accepted that this Jivatma is subservient to the goddess or Mahalakshmi also, it is also to be noted that it is very important to say that the individual soul is not subservient to anyone other than the Supreme Lord. So after considerable discussion, Swami Pillilokacharya says, Idilam Anyasheshatvam Karihaye Pradhanam. The focus of the meaning of Pukara is that this Jivatma is not subservient to anyone other than the Paramatma. Having said that, he quotes a Pashuram or a stanza which is as follows: Marandum Purandura Mandar, which is found in the Nanmuhan Tiruvandadi of the Nalayara Divya Prabandhams. As you all know, or you may not be very familiar also, the Tirumantra Prakaranam and all the other Prakaranams also quote extensively from the Divya Prabandhas. And for those who of you who are not familiar with the composition of the Divya Prabandhas, they are 4,000 in number, in the sense there are 4,000 stanzas. That is why they are called as Nalayara Divya Prabandham, or 4,000 stanzas. They are Divya Prabandha. This word Divya is very important because Divya literally means otherworldly. It can also mean that which is closely associated with the Supreme Lord Narayana. That is why the chosen sites, the 108 chosen sites, are known as the Divya Deshas. Anangaracharya Swami has very beautifully explained this term Divya and says the Pramana, Prameya and Pramata, as they are known in Sri Vaishnava parlance, they are all Divya. So the chosen 108 sites, of which 106 are in this world, 2, that is Kshira Samudram and Paramapadam, are in the world beyond us, and then several Abhimana Sthalas, as they are called as. So like it might be Tirunarayanapura or Mayalkote, then they are Rajamannarkudi and many other such states. They are known as Acharya Abhimana Sthalas. So they are known as Divya Deshas because they are associated with the Supreme Lord Narayana. And those chosen sites came to be known as Divya Deshas because they were sung about or propitiated by the Alvars who are known as the Divya Suris. So once again you find the word Divya used there. And by means of what did they propitiate the Divya chosen sites of Divya Deshas? By means of the Divya Prabandhas, or divine compositions associated with the Supreme Lord Narayana. So among those Divya Prabandhams, it is very interesting to note Swami Nammalvar, who was the premier most Alvar as we know him. He has composed the maximum number, we can say, because for Tiruvai are the final 1000 contains 1102 stanzas. Then one treatise called Thiruvirattam has 100 stanzas. Periya Tiruvandadi, another treatise, has 87 stanzas. Then Tiruvashariyam has 7. And then Tiruvai, which is the magnum opus, contains 1102. Then the second Alvar is Tirumangi Alvar, who has composed 6 treatises, out of which 1055, more than 1100 are found in one known as Periya Tirumozhi alone. Then 4 more which are part of what is known as Iyarpa in English. That is the third 1000 among the 4000s. And all the other Alvars put together have contributed around 2500. Among them, 2 or 3 Alvars have just contributed 10 stanzas. So it is very interesting to know all these things. For example, Tiruppan Alvar only 10 stanzas, known as Amalanadipiran. Then Madurakavi Alvar, very, very interesting, very unique. Only 11 stanzas, that too about Nammalvar only and not about the Lord at all. But my Acharya used to mention many times again and again, and that is the uniqueness of Sri Vaishnava philosophy, that though Madhurakavi Alvar has not sung even one stanza propitiating the Supreme Lord Narayana, he is also considered a premier Alvar and included in the group of Alvars. That is the beauty of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So among them we have a great Alvar called Tirumalizhai Alvar, who has composed the Non-Mohan Tiruvendadi, as it is known, the 400 of the year per 1000. And in that 100 stanzas, he has wonderfully mentioned about the supremacy of Lord Narayana. And as far as the life history of Tirumalizhai Alvar goes, it is mentioned that he practiced all the religions. He practiced Christianity or Islam, we don't know. He practiced Jainism, he practiced Buddhism, that's what they have written. He practiced Shaiva philosophy, and ultimately he came to practice Vaishnava philosophy after realizing the supremacy of Lord Vishnu. And in the Non-Mohan Tiruvendadi, this stanza is the Non-Mohan Tiruvendadi means it contains 100 stanzas. In that, the 68 stanza is as follows. Tirambel min kandir tiruvadi tannamam Marandum Purandolamandarai Irenjiyum Shaduvarai Podumingalinam Namanum Tantuduvarai Kuvicheviku. So we have a great Divya Prabandha scholar who is also present in this audience, namely Sri Rajagopalan Swami, who belongs to Melkote, who memorized the entire Divya Prabandhas, 4,000 Divya Prabandhas, when he was just around 14 years old. It is a great achievement. But though he has such a great achievement to his credit, he is extremely modest and he is so enterprising that he never shows himself off to be such a great achiever. I have mentioned it incidentally. So here, what does Tirumalizhai Alvar say, which makes it quotable in this context by Swami Pulladokacharya? He says, Marandum Purandola Mandar. There are two very important issues here. One is we worship the Supreme Lord Narayana as the Supreme. Second is we do not worship other demigods. So two sides of the same coin or two sides of the same principle. Worshipping Lord Narayana as the Supreme and desisting from worshipping other gods, other demigods. But here, to stress the supremacy of Lord Narayana, the Alvar mentions Marandum Purandola Mandar. I may forget about the Lord Supreme Lord Narayana, that is different, but I will not approach other demigods. So that is what is mentioned. Idinam Anyasheshatvam Kalihaye Pradhanam. And this is well illustrated by an example given in the Indian context. So in the Indian context, at some time, even a devout housewife might have a quarrel with her husband. And she may leave him and go to her parents' house to stay. But even though she is not subservient to her husband at that time, will she actually be subservient to any other male? Or will she have any infatuation for any other person? No, definitely she will not. Though she may not be devoted to her husband at that particular point of time, definitely she will not have any wish to have any other person as her husband. So here the fact is being stressed that even if a person does not worship Lord Vishnu, it is okay. He should not worship other demigods. Marandum Purandora Mandar. So even forgetfully also, even by mistake also, he should not worship other demigods. That is very important concept that exists in Sri Vaishnava philosophy, especially the devout Sri Vaishnavas who are known as Ekantins. So in Sri Vaishnava philosophy parlance, there is a word called Paramaikanti, Ekanti and Paramaikanti. Ekanti means a person who worships Lord Vishnu alone and nobody else. And the superlative of that is Paramaikanti, Paramaekanti. At no point of time he will never ever worship any other person or any other demigod other than Lord Vishnu. So that is what is mentioned in this context by saying Marandum Purandura Mandar. It is quoted by Pillilokacharya in this context. இதற்கு பிரமாணம் காட்டுகிறார் மறந்தும் புறந்துழாமாந்தரியன்கையாலே. அதாவது எமக்கின்கிற சம்வாதத்தை திருமழிசைப்பிரான் அருளிச் செய்த திறம்பேல் மின் கண்டீர் என்கிற பாட்டிலே பாகவத லட்சணம் சொல்லுகிற வளவில் திருவடி தன்னாமம் மறந்தும் புறந்துழாமாந்தரியன்னு சுவாமியுடைய திருநாமத்தை மறந்தார்களாகிலும் மற்றொரு விஷயத்தில் சேஷவிருத்தி பண்ணாதவர்கள் என்று சொல்லுகையாலே என்கை. So in this stanza, the Alvar actually narrates the Yamakinkara Samvada of that is found in the Adamilopakhyana in Srimad Bhagavatam, which I am sure Keshavdas Swami and all others are very familiar with, because it is very much stressed upon in all the Vaishnava schools of thought, whether it is ISKCON or whether it is the Madhva Sampradaya or Shri Vaishnava Sampradaya. All the Sampradayas, which are essentially Vaishnava Sampradayas only, specifically focus on the Yamakinkara Samvada, which is the nothing but the Adamilopakhyana, which is found in Srimad Bhagavatam. So what does it say? It says, even by mistake, if a person attains the name of the Lord Narayana, Sanketyam, Parihasyam va, Stobham, Hedanameva va. So even to make fun of somebody on the premise or in the pretext of making fun of somebody, if a person utters the name of the Lord, or on the pretext of just an expression, Stobha means, as I mentioned earlier, you say, gosh, oh my God, you say, Jesus Christ, somebody might say. So it is all, they are not actually remembering Jesus Christ, or when they say God, they don't mean to say the name of God. They say, oh my God, what has happened? It is only an expression which is known as Stobha in Sanskrit. So as a Stobhakshara also, if a person mentions the name of the Lord, or Parihasyam, to make fun of somebody, he may say something. Like, for example, they may say, if a person is very truthful, so among the youths it happens, and when people who are not honest make fun of an honest person. In our younger days, they say, hey, he's a Gandhi, don't go with him. Gandhi means a person who is honest, like Mahatma Gandhi was. But here it is used in a derogatory sense to say that this person is not given to such corrupt practices. So when many people who are given to corrupt practices are there, the honest person is odd man out. He becomes the odd man out, and he becomes the subject of ridicule. So when such a ridiculing is done, also on the pretext of ridiculing somebody, if the person mentions the name of the Lord, even that shall be considered by the Lord as a pretext to bless him and give him moksha. That is what is mentioned in the Yamakinkara Samvada. So there also what happens? The Yamakinkaras say, Prabhuraham anya nrinam na Vaishnavanam. We are the masters of all persons other than Vaishnavas. So, we have no right to take away the life of a person who is a Vaishnava. So, only the Vishnu Dutas, Yamadutas have no role there. It is only the Vishnu Dutas who have to perform their duty. So, the Adamilopakyana or the Yamakinkara Samvada is very significant because it upholds the greatness of the name of the Supreme Lord, which is also the case here because we are telling that the name Lord Narayana or the name Narayana is the supreme name that among all the names. That is why we said in the Dwadashakshari, we say it is inferior to the Ashtakshari because it does not have the name of Lord Narayana or the exact name Narayana. Therefore, it is very important. That is what is mentioned. Sanketyam parihasyam va stobham hedanameva va vaikunthanama grahanam sarvaghayanam viduhu, etc. So, Manavana Mamuni narrates that story here and says, Swamiyuடைய திருநாமத்தை மறந்தார்களாயினும் மற்றொரு விஷயத்தில் சேஷவிருத்தி பண்ணாதவர்கள் என்று சொல்லுகையாலே. There also, even if a person forgets the name of the Lord Narayana, he will not utter the name of other devatas. That is very important aspect. Then we go to the 65th sutra. Ittal tanakkum pirarkum urittannu engirathu. Ishvara sheshamana atmavastukku swasheshatva parasheshatvangal irandum anyasheshatvamahiyare உபயத்தையும் இவ்வுகாரம் கழிக்கிறது என்று சொல்லி நிகமிக்கிறார். இத்தால் தனக்கும் பிறர்க்கும் உரித்தன்னு என்கிறது. So he actually summarizes the entire context when he says இத்தால் தனக்கும் பிறர்க்கும் சேஷமன்னு. So what does it suffice to say? It suffices to say that this Jivatma is not subservient to himself. So I am not subservient to me only. Neither am I subservient to me nor to any other Jivatma except for the Supreme Lord Narayana. And when you say Narayana, it includes Goddess Lakshmi also. So two aspects are being negated here. Which are the two aspects? That this Jivatma, or any Jivatma for that matter, he is not subservient to he himself, as well as he is not subservient to any other Jivatma, except for Paramatma, or the Supreme Lord Narayana, and his consort Goddess Lakshmi. So this is the purport of the meaning of Ukara. அதாவது அந்நசேஷத்துவ நிவர்த்தகமான இவ்வுகாரத்தாலே அந்யரில் அந்யதமத்துவம் அவிசிஷ்டமாயாலே இவ்வாத்மவஸ்து தனக்கும் உரித்தன்னு தன்னை ஒழிந்த சம்சாரிகளுக்கும் உரித்தன்னு என்னுமிடம் சொல்லுகிறதென்கை. ஆஹா உகாரத்தை அருளிச் செய்தாராய்த்து, உகாரார்த்தத்தை அருளிச் செய்தாராய்த்து. So I am neither subservient to myself, nor am I subservient to any other Jivatma. So these two aspects are to be understood by the alphabet come word Ukara. So this summarizes the meaning of the word Ukara or U. And then further he goes on to explain the meaning of Makara. மகாரம் 25ஆம் அக்ஷரமாய் ஞானவாச்சியுமாயிருக்கையாலே ஆத்மாவை சொல்லுகிறது. அனந்தரம் திருத்தீயாட்சரமான மகாரார்த்தத்தை அருளிச் செய்கிறார். மகாரம் என்று தொடங்கி, அதாவது பூதானி ச கவர்கேண சவர்கேண இந்திரியாணி ச தவர்கேண ஞானகந்தாதயஸ்ததா. manah pakarenayvoktam bhakarena tvahankritihi bhakarena bhaha bhakarena mahan prakritiruchyate atma tu samakarena panchavimshah prakirtitaha என்கிறபடியே பிருத்திவியாதி பிரகிருத்தியந்தமான 24 தத்துவங்களுக்கும் வாச்சகமாய் இருந்துள்ள ககாராதி பகாராந்தமான 24 அக்ஷரமும் போலன்னிக்கே மகாரம் 25ஆம் அக்ஷரமாய் மனஞானே என்கிற தாதுவினேயாதல் மனு அவபோதனே என்கிற தாதுவினேயாதல் நிஷ்பன்னமாகியாலே ஞானவாச்சியுமாயிருக்கையாலே பஞ்சவிம்சோயம் புருஷா பஞ்சவிம்சா ஆத்மா பவதி என்கிறபடியே பஞ்சவிம்சகனாய் விஜ்ஞானாத்மா புருஷா விஜ்ஞாதாரமரேகேன விஜானீயாத் என்கிறபடியே ஞானஸ்வரூபனுமாய் ஞான குணகனுமாய் இருக்கிற ஆத்மாவை சொல்லுகிறது என்கை. Very beautifully Trilokacharya has explained how Makara denotes the individual soul, that is known as Jiva. Makaram 25ஆம் அக்ஷரமாய் ஞானவாச்சியுமாய் இருக்கும். So you have to know the Sanskrit Varnamala well to understand this statement. So in Sanskrit Varnamala you have two basic categories. One is known as Swaras. A, I, I, U, U, R, R, A, I, O, O. These are known as Swaras. Aha are known as Yogavahas or Ayogavahas. They are included in the Swaras only. And then you have the Vyanjanas or the as they are currently translated. Swaras are translated as vowels and Vyanjanas are translated as consonants, which is not the right translation. Anyway, it serves the practical purpose, so we go with it. So what is Swara and what is Vyanjana? According to the Vyakarana Shastra or the grammar, science of grammar, Swatantrataya Ucharyamano Varnaha Swaraityuchyate. So that which one is able to pronounce independently is known as Swara. So that is why it is known as Swatantrataya Ucharyamanaha Varna. And that which is that which one can pronounce with the help of Swaras only are known as Vyanjanas. Or they may be translated as consonants in English. So how many consonants are there? There are 33 consonants. Among them, you have 25 consonants which are classified as Vargiya Vyanjanas. That means they actually fall under specific categories. So gutturals, palatals, then dentals, labials, and one more linguals or something like that. So we call it as Kantya, Kantha, Talu, Murdha, Danta, and Oshtho. So here what happens? These 25 alphabets are known as Vargiya Vyanjanas, or consonants that are classified consonants. And then you have 8 more: Ya, Ra, La, Va, Sha, Sha, Sa, Ha. So these are once again combinations. So among the 25, the 25th alphabet, the first 5 are Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga, Cha, Cha, they are gutturals, Cha, Cha, Da, Da, Nga, palatals, Ta, Tha, Da, Da, Na, Ta, Tha, Da, Da, Na, that is linguals, Ta, Tha, Da, Da, Na, dentals, Pa, Pa, Ba, Ba, Ma, labials. There is a very scientific, well-established scientific reason behind this classification. Of course, I was earlier in the lecture today, I was mentioning about this because when you talk about the English alphabet, so kindly don't mistake me, this is not to belittle the English alphabet. There is no logical reason why the alphabets are arranged in a particular order. Why A after B? Why C after D? Then why D, E, etc. So it has come to us in a tradition. We follow the tradition and be done with it. Nobody questions it. Whereas when you take the case of Sanskrit alphabet, it is see how scientific it is. Because if you draw a curve like this from this portion to this portion, so this is the bottommost point, which can be shown like this, and this is the topmost point, and this is the middle point. So all the alphabets that are pronounced by a human being fall in this curve only. So sage Panini has very beautifully traced this. And the first sutra of the Vyakarana Shastra is A, I, U, Ne. A, E, and U. So A is the bottommost point, E is the topmost point, U is the endmost point. All the alphabets fall. And these three are the basics for us. After you have A, O. A is A plus is A plus O is O. A plus A is I, and A plus O is O. So they are all combinatory vowels. So basic vowels we have only three: A, E, and U. And then R and L, that is something. Then Ka, Ka, Ga, Ga, Ka are all gutturals. Cha, Cha, Ja, Ja, palatals, then linguals, then dentals, then labials. So it's totally systematic. From if you take how the sound emanates from the human speech box, as they call it, it is very, very scientific. It's very well arranged. So even Ka, Ka, Ga, Ga, you have Ka, which is unvoiced, and then it's Mahaprana Kha. Then Ga is a voiced vowel. Then the Mahaprana Gha. Then Ga is a guttural associated with a nasal sound. So the Vargas or categories are nasal sounds. The first are all unvoiced or unaspirated. All the second alphabets are unvoiced but aspirated. Third, voiced and aspirated. Fourth is voiced and aspirated. So every way you classify it, it's unique. It is extremely systematic. This is as far as the science of the phonetics is concerned. Coming to the symbolic meaning of this. According to Sankhya philosophy and also accepted in Vishishtadvaita philosophy, you have 25 tattvas. Prakriti Mahan Prakriter Mahan Ne Tato Ahankaraha Tasmad Ganashcha Shodashakaha Tasmadapi Shodashakate Panchabhyas Panchabhuta. To simplify it, Prakriti Tattva, Mahat Tattva, and Ahankara Tattva, you have three. Then you have 11 Indriyas or 11 sense organs. 5 sense organs, 5 motor organs, and Manas. So 16 plus 3, 19. Then you have the Panchamahabhutas. Earth, air, water, Panchatanmatras and Panchamahabhutas. So it becomes 25. 19 plus 5 is 25. Then 25th is Jivatma. So Makaram, 25th Aksharamai. Makara is the 25th alphabet among the vowels. And it actually denotes jnana or into knowledge, which can be taken in the sense of consciousness. So symbolically also the 25th alphabet is Makara, which means knowledge. How? Swami Manwad Mamni very beautifully explains. And each one alphabet represents one tattva of the Sankhya philosophy, which is accepted in Vishishtadvaita philosophy as it is. Therefore, this Makara is very, very, very significant. And he says how each Varga represents one aspect of the Prakriti. Bhuta, அதாவது Bhutanicha Kavargena. So the Kavarga Kaka Gaganga represents the Panchamahabhutas, earth, air, earth, water, air, fire and Akasha or ether. Chavargena Indriyanicha. Chavarga represents these five Indriyas. Tavargena Jnanagandhadayas tatha. So the five Jnanendriyas and then the five gunas, that is Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandhas, and then Manaf Pakarena Ivoktam Pakarena tu Ahankritihi Bakarena Bhakarena Mahan Prakriti Ruchyate. Prakriti and Mahat Tattva and Ahankara and Manas. These are respectively denoted by Ba, Ba, Bha, Pa, Pha, Ba, Bha. And finally, Atma tu Samakarena Panchavimshah Prakirtitaha. And the 25th alphabet among the vowels, which is Makara, denotes the Jivatma. Em Girapadiye Pathivyadi Prakrityantamana Iravattanala Tattvattakum Vachakamayirindula Kakaradi Bhakarantamana Iravattanala Aksharamam Podannike. All the 24 alphabets which occur before Makara denote insentient entities. Makara, since it denotes a sentient entity or a conscious entity, has to denote the Jivatma alone and not anything else. Why Makara alone? Why not take Bhakara or Akara or some other alphabet to denote the denote the Jivatma? The answer to that is given by saying Makaram Iravattanjam Aksharamai Manajnane Engiradhatu Vileyadal Manu Avabodhane Engiradhatu Vileyadal Nishpannamaheyade. One very important concept we all have to note. In Sanskrit, every word has emanated from a root. Sarvam dhatu jamaha shakatasya tokam. There is a statement in the Vyakarana Shastra. Suppose I ask a question. Now, this is a bottle. Why should I call this object as a bottle only? Why not denote this object by the word pen? And denote an object called the pen by the word bottle? What is it that actually binds us to do so? Is there any reason? There is no apparent reason, except for the reason that when you look up the Oxford Dictionary or the Cambridge Dictionary, you find that certain words are derived from certain roots available in Greek and Latin. But all the words do not have such a basis. In Sanskrit, except for some exceptions, all the words are denoted by roots only, from roots only. So why do you call Lord Krishna as Krishna? Because Karshati iti Krishna, it is derived from the root Karshi. Karshati, Manamsi Akarshati iti Krishna. Karsha means to attract. So he is a Lord who attracts the minds of the devotees. Similarly, when you say Rama, what does it mean? It is derived from the root Ramuk Kridayam, that means to entertain. Ramante yoginaha yasmin iti Ramaha, Ramayati iti Ramaha. One who actually entertains the minds of his devotees. One so gives great bliss to his devotees when meditated upon. That is why he is known as Rama. Then Harihi, why is he known as Hari? Harati iti Harihi, Harir Harati Papani, Tushta Chittairapi Smrtaha. So one who takes away by force. What does he take away by force? He takes away all our sins. Even if a wicked man meditates upon Lord Hari or remembers Lord Hari, that Hari is, his nature is such that he will take away all the sins of a person who remembers him. So harati iti harihi, hring harane iti dhatuhu tatra vartate. Similarly here, two roots are instrumental in deriving the word manas or ma. Manajnane, mana to know, or manu avabodhane. Both are having the same meaning in the sense to know. Yangira dhatu vineyadan nishpan. So they are derived from a root which means to know. Jnanavachiyamairikkayale panchavinshoyam purusha. Then he shows several references from the authentic texts of Sri Vaishnava philosophy and also the Vedic texts. Panchavimshoyam purushaha panchavimshaha atma bhavati Yangirapadiye. Then he shows the references, he quotes the references from the Vedas. Vijnanatma purushaha. In the Upanishads we see Esha hi drashta shrota karta manta bodha Vijnanatma purushaha. Then you have in the Chandogya Upanishad or some other Upanishad, Vijnataramare Navijaniyat. So he is known as the Vijnanatma or Vijnata, who possesses Vijnana or consciousness. So therefore, there are enough evidences in our ancient scriptures, including the Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas, and also the treatises of our Purvacharyas, and also the sanction of grammar, Sanskrit grammar, to establish that the word Makara can denote the Jivatma. This is the purport of this sutra. Engirapadiye Jnana Swarupanumai, Jnana Gunakanumai, Rekira Atma Vichunduhirade Engai. Then he also explains one very important and unique aspect of Vishishtadvaita philosophy, which says the Jivatma is not only of the nature of jnana knowledge, but he also possesses knowledge as an attribute. So in Sanskrit, we call it as Dharma Bhuta Jnana, and it is translated in philosophical parlance as attributive consciousness. So the analogy given to understand this is as follows. You have a beautiful lamp. So the lamp is of the nature of light. So it is light itself. So you don't need another light to show that a lamp exists. And then it also possesses light as its attribute, because the light that emanates from the lamp is useful in us seeing other things. Therefore, we say that knowledge or consciousness is an attribute of the Jivatma. At the same time, the Jivatma itself is consciousness or of the nature of consciousness. So the consciousness that is as an attribute of the Jivatma is known as attributive consciousness or Dharma Bhuta Jnana. Whereas the consciousness that is of the nature of the Jivatma is known as Dharmi Bhuta Jnana. Attributive consciousness is not as Dharma Bhuta Jnana. Whereas the consciousness that is the nature of the Atma is known as Dharmi Bhuta Jnana. So the Atma is Jnana Swarupa as well as Jnana Gunaka. He is of the nature of knowledge as well as possesses knowledge as an attribute. Just like a lamp, he is of the nature of light and also possesses light as an attribute. This is one very unique aspect of Vishishtadvaita philosophy, because other philosophies like Advaita accept that the Atma is of the nature of knowledge, but they don't accept Atma as an attribute called consciousness. The Nyaya philosophy and Madhva philosophy mention that knowledge is only an attribute, but it does not the Atma is not of the nature of knowledge. But the uniqueness of Vishtadvaita philosophy is that we accept consciousness both as the nature and attribute of the Jivatma. Same applies to Supreme Lord also. என்கிறபடியே ஞான ஸ்வரூபனுமாய் ஞான குணக்கனுமாய் இருக்கிற ஆத்மாவை சொல்லுகிறது. கீழ் சொன்ன சேஷத்துவம் சர்வசாதாரணமாகியாலே திவிதாத்ம வர்க்கத்தையும் இதிலே சொல்ல வேண்டியாலே அருளி செய்கிறார். இதுதான் சமஷ்டிவாச்சகம் ஜாத்தியே கவச்சனம். இத்தால் ஆத்மா ஞாதாவென்று தேகத்திலே வியாவர்த்தி சொல்லித்தாய்த்து. So these shlokas, these sutras deal with a new concept. So here I will conclude today. Any discussions, feedback, questions are there?
Swami, can you explain you were talking about the different vargas, the vargiya vyanjanas, the
Yes.
consonants. Can you explain the word apavarga philosophically? Apavarga.
Apavarga. Apavarga has nothing to do with this. Apavarga means moksha or liberation. That word has nothing to do with this classification of the vargas of the alphabets.
It's just that I've heard some people say that each of these letters in pavarga means something, and therefore apavarga is beyond them. I don't know.
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
At least I have not come across any interpretation like that. We regularly use the word apavarga in Vedanta philosophy, which means apavarga means moksha.
So
even in Nyaya philosophy, that is the word used to denote moksha. So apavarga essentially means moksha only, and nothing to do with the vargas or classification of the alphabets.
Okay, so my other question is, it seems like one should study the Dhatupata of Panini in order to understand the meanings of words. So can you explain about Dhatupata? And also, I think Nirukta is an important book for understanding.
Nirukta is considered a Vedanga, and it gives the etymology of the words that are contained in the Vedas, not in classical Sanskrit. So the meaning of the words of classical Sanskrit is to be known by, so when we talk about knowing the meanings of words, if you have to know the etymology, etc., you have to know etymology and morphology. You have to learn it from Vyakarana. That is the Paniniya Vyakarana only. But overall meaning, if you want to know, there are other means of knowing also. But etymology, morphology, etc., has to be known by studying Vyakarana.
So, but when you look up a root of a word in Dhatupad, it gives also another meaning, another root. Another root.
Another what? I could not say.
In Dhatupad, it gives a meaning for the root, for each root. And then you sometimes it gives more than one meaning, and you can look up more roots because of that. So it becomes
no, there is for example, there are several dhatus which have many meanings and mutually connected meanings. For example, chare jati bhakshaneyo. There is a root called chare, which means to move and to eat, and also move while eating. So there are several uniquenesses, peculiarities, etc. For example, the word diva, which is the root of the word deva, has 7 or 8 meanings. So, and for example, I was mentioning, it will come here also later in this work. The word Shrihi is derived by 7 roots. Shrayate iti Shrihi, Srinati iti Shrihi, Shriyate iti Shrihi, etc., etc. So that is the uniqueness of Sanskrit language, that one word can have so many meanings within the framework of grammar and the associated rules. So ultimately, once my father was mentioning, and he keeps mentioning now also. A model Sri Vaishnava, the education of a model Sri Vaishnava spans for about 45 years. Because first he has to master all the Vedas, the Vedangas, then all the Samanya Shastras like Nyaya, Vyakarna, Mimamsa. Then he has to come to Vedanta, study the Shri Bhashyam, Gita Bhashyam, etc. Then he has to master all the 4,000 Divya Prabandhas, then their commentaries, then all the Rahasya Granthas and their commentaries. So to do that, if he does it in a very proper manner with utmost dedication, it will take him about 45 years to do so. But his stature will be so high that nobody can equal him in any manner. Of course, we have had such people like Annangaracharya of the of Kanchipuram, who lived about 30 years ago, until about 30 years or 40 years ago. There have been such people. Even our Purvacharyas like Manavada Mamani, Vedanta Deshika, etc., they have also been there. And if you take the Sri Bhashyam alone, according to the critical edition which my father published when he was in the Academy of Sanskrit Research, we see that Ramanujacharya has quoted from nearly 200 works. So did he have a library online or offline? Even a physical library for that matter, where did he have? No books were there in those days. So he had memorized all the 200 works, due to which he could quote from them freely. Even Manavada Mamani has quoted from so many works, as you can see here. So they had memorized all of them while they were young. So it's not impossible task. But their memory power was so great. And also they were taught in such a manner, which makes it all the more unique and wonderful.
Swami, our question, Swami, is even though one is a very staunch Sri Vaishnava, and if you go to a temple and there are so many other other gods, you're going the Pradakshina Varapa when you come doing Pradakshina. What do we do at that situation? We have Mahan, so that's
what they have mentioned is the ideal situation, and if possible, we follow that. Otherwise, there is a statement which says Sarvadeva Namaskaraha Keshavam Prati Gacchati. That is the purport of the several adhikaranas of Sri Bhashya also. So ultimately, to any god you prostrate, the prostration reaches the Supreme Lord because he is the Antaryami of all the other gods. So when you say, when we perform the Vaidika karmas, we say Indraya Swaha, Agniya Swaha, Somaya Swaha, and several other, even Rudraya Pashupataye Swaha, etc. In all those cases, it has been well proven based on the pramanas available in the Shastras that ultimately the one who is worshipped. So he is the Antaryami of all the other gods. So even if you worship a particular god, I mean demigod, ultimately the Namaskara will reach the Supreme Lord only. Yatha Akashat Patitam Toyam Yatha Gacchati Sagaram. Sarvadeva Namaskaraha Keshavam Prati Gacchati. That is what we tell in the Sandhyanam every day. So those who perform, they tell it every day in the Sandhyanam, which means, so suppose you are in India, assuming that you are in India, rain will fall in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh, in North India, South India, Western India. So where will all the rain go? All the rain will go to the rivers. And all the rivers, one way or the other, they will culminate in the ocean only. So just as Akashat Patitam Toyam, wherever the water may fall in whichever geographical location, ultimately it has to reach the ocean. Similarly, Akashat Patitam Toyam Yatha Gacchati Sagaram Sarvadeva Namaskaraha Keshavam Prati Gacchati. So that's what is mentioned.
Dhanyavadi Swami. Thank you.
चेद्रामानुजेत्येषा चतुरा चतुरक्षरी कामावस्थां प्रपद्यन्ते जन्तवो हन्तमादृशः पुण्याम्भोजविकासाय पापध्वां तक्षयाय च श्रीमानाविरभूत् भूमौ रामानुजदिवाकरः नीकृतविनिञ्चार्दिनं कुशविभूतयः रामानुजपदाम्भोजसमाश्रयेण शालिनः